Test, test. The microphone seems to be working. Hello everyone. Hello from beautiful Sacred Valley, where I'm tuning in today because there's this topic that's been quite present with me and in my conversations with friends in the last couple of weeks. And I feel it's really asking to be explored here with you. And that's the topic of our relationship with our desires. You see, the situation we're currently faced with, both individually and collectively, is begging for bringing more awareness to this, because suddenly we're faced with lots of limitations. We cannot go out, we cannot hang out with our favorite people, we cannot go and eat at our favorite restaurants, and our routine is really disrupted. There's lots of things that we might be wanting and enjoying that we cannot have right now. And for many people this can manifest as cravings or as anxiety or feeling of loneliness and other kinds of experiences. But I feel like what it really kind of represents is an opportunity to explore the way we relate with our desires as a whole. And the reason I want to speak to this is because this topic has been quite a big part of my path in the last couple of years. And there's a couple of things that I feel can be helpful in your exploration in that direction. So the first one is about welcoming and acknowledging our desires as parts of ourselves. And that might seem like quite straightforward and clear, but in my own experience, what I've discovered is that it's not always the case. You see, a couple of years ago, I remember realizing how I felt guilty and bad every time I would acknowledge I want something and express it. And digging a little bit deeper, what I found was that in my childhood, when I was a little girl, whenever I would want something and that something would be refused to me by my parents, whether it was because it was too expensive or because it was not good for me or any other reason, for some reason in my little child developing brain that got interpreted as I'm a bad girl when I want things. And it took me apparently 20-something years to come to a point where I could see that this part of myself had remained in the stage in which it was when I was a small child and allow it to start maturing. And the reason why I'm sharing this with you is because I feel that when it comes to relating with our desires, usually it really helps to look back to our early childhood experiences and see what is the way in which they are shaping the way that right now we're relating to those desires, and just inviting that part of ourselves that wants things to start maturing, to grow, to unfold into a more healthy version. And usually that version really has to do with allowing and acknowledging our desires as a healthy and useful part of ourselves. Then the second thing, my head is still here, that's good news. That's not the second thing. The second thing that I would like to explore is having to do with actually how much importance we give to our desires. To bring a little bit of context to this, I want to share with you what I've realized more recently, which is that the culture in which many of us have grown up and are currently marinating in has a way of actually exaggerating the importance of our desires. And the reason why this is happening is because we're constantly being bombarded with messages about all these things that we're supposed to be wanting, these products and services and experiences, and all these stories of all these successful people that have had a big dream or a big desire and made it happen, and that's the most amazing thing a person can do. And so actually what this leads to, although none of us is going to, in our right minds, think to ourselves, oh, I'm a consumer, on a subconscious level, we are somehow identifying as such because we're constantly being approached and addressed as such. And in that, why I'm using the word consumer is because a consumer is very often defined by their desire or need for something. And what's been really helpful for me is noticing how this has led me to believe that my happiness and my fulfillment lies in me meeting my desires. So what I would like to encourage you guys to explore that can help you in this direction is really to look for examples, to look for evidence, for situations in which you went after your desires, you had them fulfilled, but that didn't lead to happiness. And in the same way, you can look for situations in which you did not get your desires fulfilled, but somehow something came up that was surprising and wonderful, and you were able to appreciate it, although it was not a result of you saying, oh, I want this, and going after it. So these are some ways in which you can start working with this. And the last piece I want to bring to this, the third component, is about starting to really distinguish between needs and desires. And I really want to bring attention to this because I feel that part of this consumerist culture is actually also having us look at our desires as if they're actual needs of things that we cannot live without, whereas they're not necessarily such. And a very good example of this is actually from my own experience, because I used to work in IT and I used to be a product manager. And what that often meant was that I had to go out and speak with people and identify, this was the first step of conceptualizing a product or a service, I had to identify who was it that we wanted to serve as a company and what was the need that they had. And in that instance, however, the truth is that oftentimes we would refer to needs of people that were not necessarily needs. So for example, it could be something about making their emails more efficient, or their experience of getting their laundry done more efficient, or something like that. And that is not necessarily a need. It might be a want or a desire or a motivation or something like that, but it's not a need. And I really want to encourage you to look at this because, you know, at least in my experience, the basic needs I have to do with breathing air and eating food and drinking water and having shelter and having human connection. So those are things that I really feel like I cannot live without. Whereas everything else are some desires I might have, which are useful and helpful parts of myself, but are not necessarily needs. And so it really helps to not treat them as such, to be honest. So these are the three things I felt like sharing with you guys today. So the first one is acknowledging and welcoming our desires as parts of ourselves. The second one is about not giving them that much importance and stepping back to see our wider self and how this is just a part of ourselves and is equally important as all the other parts of ourselves. And the third one is about starting to distinguish between what are really my needs and what are some desires I have, and treat them accordingly. I hope this has been useful, and I wish you a beautiful day.